Hello there. I am Ronin I, and welcome to Lounge Ronin. All things, everything. If you are new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And on this episode, we're going to discuss the link between autism and DNA. Part 2. Forgot to change up the thumbnail. So this is going to be a light introduction. Part 1, we did a bit of a deep dive. We did cover the scientific paper regarding the link between autism and Neanderthal DNA. And it's some really fascinating stuff. So I implore you to check out part 1 before you check out part 2. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hello there, I'm Ronin I, and welcome to Ronin Art and Music, home to Ronin music, Lounge Ronin, all things, everything, the Monday Mindset, Rants, and Ronin Reviews. We strive to make holistic and authentic content that aims to improve your individuality, mental fortitude, and peace of mind. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Stay positive, stay focused, stay true, and much love. Now, back to the show. Hello there, I'm Ronin I, and welcome to Ronin Art and Music, home to Ronin music, Lounge Ronin, all things, everything, the Monday Mindset, Rants, and Ronin Reviews. We strive to make holistic and authentic content that aims to improve your individuality, mental fortitude, and peace of mind. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification. So this article was updated June 27th, 2024 by Nathan Flade. Neanderthal child with Down syndrome received compassionate group care. An anatomical study of a piece of a Neanderthal child's skull showed that this young person had been born with severe health challenges, a type of commonly associated with Down syndrome. Yet somehow this child survived to at least the age of 6 and likely somewhat longer than that, despite the perils and the challenge he or she would have faced. For this to be possible, the child would have needed regular care and attention, even beyond what the child's mother would have been able to provide. According to the scientists involved in this new study, their discovery helps confirm the theory that Neanderthals were not only capable of empathy and compassion, but demonstrated these emotions in real-life circumstances. Share childcare and acts of kindness in Neanderthal society. The skull bone of the Neanderthal youngster with Down syndrome was recovered from a cavern known as Cova Negra, which is located near the town of Yativa in eastern Spain. Archaeologists have been exploring this cave for at least a century, and it has continued to produce interesting finds that shed light on the habits and lifestyles of Neanderthals who occupied it continuously from approximately 237,000 years to 156,000 years ago. While shifting through the assortment of animal remains excavated in Cova Negra, a team of researchers led by archaeologist Mercedes Conde Veladra from the University of Alcalá in Spain discovered a Neanderthal bone fragment. They eventually identified the piece of bone as having come from a skull, and they are fascinated to discover that it included structures associated with the inner ear. While the bone fragment wasn't overly large, they were still able to create a 3D model of the skull it came from using CT scans. They quickly realized the skull was not a Neanderthal and not a human, and that it came from a small child and not a full-grown adult. Based on the 3D skull size and shape, the researchers estimated that the child was between 6 and 10 years old when they died. Most intriguingly, the image of the skull generated the skull they generated showed some distinctive anomalies in the inner ear region, variations in architecture that would have inhibited functioning. A set of three tubes known as a semicochlear canals, which are linked to both hearing and balance, were malformed, and the child also had an unusually small cochlea, which is part of the ear that is essential for proper hearing. And here we have a 3D model of the inner ear. What this means is that the Neanderthal child suffered from a congenital pathology of the inner ear, probably delimiting and associated with Down syndrome. The researchers wrote in an article about their study published in the Science Advances, quote, "This child would have had required care for at least 6 years, likely necessitating other group members to assist the mother in child care," end quote. A child with these anomalies of the inner ear would have had problems with hearing, balance, and mobility, and their Down syndrome likely would have impacted their cognitive abilities as well. Self-care of any type would have been a struggle at all times, and they would have required extremely close monitoring as a result. But in ancient times, which the Neanderthal child lived, survival needs have been urgent and time-consuming. Everyone in the child's group would have needed to have spent a lot of time hunting or gathering food, including the child's parents. Yet their child care responsibilities would have been immense and constant, creating obvious difficulties. This is really interesting. So they would have needed help presumably from friends or family members, or from the society at large. Given the reality, the researchers believe their discoveries are, quote, fully compatible with the idea previously associated by other authors, that caregiving and collaborative parenting occurred together in Neanderthals, and that both pro-social behaviors were part of the broader social adaptation of high selective value, and that must have been very similar to that of our species, end quote. This is just my personal speculation and observation, but I'm wondering if scientists do find more skull fragments of children with Down syndrome in various Neanderthal communities throughout the region that they are being excavated, and they find a similar pros how do you describe it, like a proto-social behavior. I'm wondering if the practice and the responsibility of caring for Neanderthal Down syndrome children contributed to our social evolution of communities. Because if you think about it now, we, if you look at a lot of more, primitive cultures and societies, more tribalistic societies that still are prolific today, they are communities. The children are in many ways raised by the community. So I'm wondering if, due to this genetic defect that Neanderthals were experiencing, this contributed to our social evolution. Something to keep in mind in your own studies. I think we're going to cover the article as well. I'll pull that up after we finish this. It's not always about survival. In an interview with New Scientist, Penny Pinkins, an archaeologist from the University of York who studies human origins, supports the conclusion of Mercedes Conde Valverde and her colleagues. Quote, Neanderthals were clearly caring for people in their group. And this is a lovely example that really brings home how much they cared, end quote, she stated. According to Spickens, there are other evidence of Neanderthal compassion and unselfishness. As an example, she mentioned the discovery of the remains of an incapacitated adult male Neanderthal in Shinadar Cave in Iraq. This individual had suffered severe physical damage due to his limbs and skull, but had apparently lived for another 10 to 15 years despite his condition. Such a thing would not have been possible without the care and assistance of loved ones, comrades, and as a case of, oh my God, and as in the case with Neanderthal child with Down syndrome. Apologies for the that ad. They got to pay the bills, right? Quote, sometimes authors believe that caregiving took place between individuals are to be reciprocated. The favor, while others argue that caregiving was produced by a feeling of compassion related to other highly adaptive pro-social behaviors, end quote. The researchers wrote in their Science Advances article acknowledging the two generally accepted theories to explain mutual aid in ancient societies. They then point out that the first theory doesn't apply to children with severe health issues, since children have a very limited possibility to reciprocate the assistance. Amplifying this observation, Spickens noted that even when grown up, a child with severe impairment related to Down syndrome wouldn't have been able to contribute much to the group's survival. Nevertheless, she said, people with Down syndrome are often tremendously affectionate and very sociable, and that counts for a lot of these kinds of small-scale societies, end quote. Since ancient humans and Neanderthals were closely related, enough so that they could interbreed, there were undoubtedly many shared traits that connected the two species. Vulnerability to Down syndrome was one, but it seems that empathy and compassion should be included on the list of these traits as well, since it clearly Neanderthals took care of their own, even when there was no direct survival advantage in doing so. Okay, that's really interesting. So we're going to pull up the scientific article because I think it's important for us to cover that as well. But one thing that I'm wondering if this is part of the case is that Down syndrome was more prevalent in Neanderthal DNA. And I'm curious if that is the case due to maybe a substantial amount of interbreeding. And then when you have more, our closely related cousins interbreeding with Neanderthals, you then run the Sorry guys, hold on. I got some weird things going on. Okay, I fixed it. Apologies. I don't know why it keeps doing that. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I was not expecting this to be that intriguing to me, to be honest. Like, I mean, I was, but I didn't think it was going to get this fascinating. I should correct myself. Okay, here we go. Let's get into it. Okay. Okay, this is the scientific paper, or I should say scientific article on Science Advances. We covered a little bit of it in the first article, and it was released June 26, 2024. The Child Who Lived, Down Syndrome Among Neanderthals. All right. Abstract. Caregiving for disabled individuals among Neanderthals has been known for a long time, and there is a debate about the implications of this behavior. Some authors believe that caregiving took place between individuals able to reciprocate the favor, while others argue that caregiving was produced by a feeling of compassion related to other highly adaptive pro-social behaviors. The study of children with severe pathologies is particularly interesting, as children have a very limited possibility to reciprocate the assistant. We present the case of a Neanderthal child who suffered from cognitional pathology in the inner ear, probably debilitating the associate with Down syndrome. This child would have required care for at least 6 years, likely necessitating other group members to assist the mother in child care. Okay. Introduction. The existence of caregiving for sick or injured individuals among Neanderthals has been known for a long time, although interest in understanding the implications of this behavior has increased in recent years. For some authors, the caregiving among Neanderthals would be related to a broader and more complex social context of great adaptive value. Here we present the case of a Neanderthal individual who survived at least 6 years of age suffering from severe inner ear pathology, most likely associated with the presence of Down syndrome. The symptoms produced by this, apologies, hold on, I gotta take care of my dog for a second. About that. The symptoms produced by this pathology would have included, at a minimum, severe hearing loss and marketed reduced sense of balance and equilibrium. Thus, necessary for the survival over a period of several years likely exceeded the capabilities of the mother and would have required the help of other members of the social group. This is known case in Neanderthal of social care for a child with severe pathology. An interesting debate in the field of bioarchaeology is about the existence of care in prehistory based on the study of lesions in fossil specimens. On one hand, some authors argue that it is not possible for rigorously infer the existence of care form where mere paleoarchaeological evidence, and that the inferences made are based on unwarranted assumptions. In recent years, however, the idea that paleopathological evidence is an object source of information on the existence of care in prehistory has been gaining ground, and a method of making systemic inferences about the nature of care for paleoarchaeological evidence has already been proposed. Another particularly interesting aspect in the field of bioarchaeology of care applied to fossil hominins is to determine why people devoted part of their time and effort to care for a temporary or permanently disabled member of their group. On the one hand, there are authors who believe that caregiving took place in context of reciprocal selflessness between individuals able to reciprocate the favor, while other authors argue that assistance to sick or injured individuals among Neanderthals was beyond reciprocal selflessness and was produced by a genuine feeling of compassion. In turn, the compassionate feeling would be part of the broader collaborative behavior of a great adaptive value that would include other pro-social behaviors. In this context, the study of infants with pathologies that would have required the assistance of other members of the group to survive is particularly interesting, as children have a very limited possibility to reciprocate the assistance received. On the other hand, when the intensity or duration of the care necessary for the child's survival exceeds the mother's possibilities, she requires additional extra maternal help from the other individuals in a social group. Thus, the study of individual children offers the possibility of testing whether the caregiving is directly related to such complex social strategy as collaborative parenting. Unfortunately, to date, no case of pathological immature Neanderthal individual has been known for which these hypotheses could be tested. In this context, fossil C946-700 from the Cova Negra site is the particular interest because it is a Neanderthal child with signs of having suffered a severe cognitive pathology, and its study may help us to better understand the extent of social care among Neanderthals. Cova Negra site. Cova Negra is a cave site in the locality of Zativia, Vecinia, Spain, and has been excavated at different periods of time between 1929 and 2017. A set of human fossil remains are known from this site from levels dated to the electron spine resonance U series between 273 and 146,000 years ago, and have been assigned to the species Homo neanderthals. Recently, when sorting through the funnel remains from the 1989 campaign, 3 new fragments of human fossils were found, deriving from an undated disputed level at the site that contained archaeological materials belonging mostly from the Middle Paleolithic, although it also includes materials from the Upper Paleolithic. Among these new remains is a fragment of the right pestromastoid region of the immature temporal bone. Given its provenance from a disputed level possible containing either H. Neanderthalis or Homo sapien fossils, the first step of our study focused on taxonomic identification. And here are the models. Results. Taxonomic diagnosis. Micro. Computed tomography scans of the original fossil were used to reconstruct a three-dimensional model for measurement and analysis. For our analysis, we use taxonomical relevant inner ear characteristics to differentiate Neanderthals from Homo sapiens. 4 of them correspond to the semicircular canals, the relative placement of the posterior semicircular canal and the radia of the anterior semicircular canal and posterior semicircle canal and lateral semicircle canal. Try saying that 3 times fast. The other 2 variables used correspond to the cochleae. The total number of cochlear, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that word, turns NT and the proportional oh God, I've never said so many big words in so many minutes. Woo! Proportional length of the third cochlear turn. Ah, man, it's going to bug me that I can't say that word. Because CN 46700 has been abnormally reduced, cochlear volume would be reasonable to think that this reduction could affect the NT and L3 variables and distort the results of the taxonomic analysis. To establish whether variations in the cochlear volume affect NT and L3 variables, we calculated the correlation coefficients between the variables in a sample of modern humans. Our results demonstrate that cochlear volumes is neither correlated within the variable NT R 0.1341 pi equals 0.480, nor the variable L3 R equals 0.852 pi equals 0.64654, indicating that variations in cochlear volume do not affect NT and L3 values. Whew. My math boys tell me if I got that right. Man, my reading comprehension is going to skyrocket. I love it. The value in CN 46700 and SLI is similar to the mean of Neanderthal sample, but is about 2 z-scores away from the sample, means 3 modern human and 1 Homo sapien fossils used for comparison. On the other hand, the NT and L3 values of the Cova Negra sample fall within the range of variation of Neanderthals, but are outside the range of more than 2 z-scores away from the mean of our modern Homo sapien samples. And here we have them. The taxonomic diagnostic variables of the inner ear in CN 46700 Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. To complete our taxonomic analysis, we performed a distinct function analysis with the 4 semicircular canal variables, SL1, ACS, ASCR, PSCR, and LSCR, on the sample of 29 Neanderthals and 24 fossil Homo sapiens. The 26th extent Homo sapiens data S2, the results of our analysis allows us to distinguish between Homo sapiens and Homo neanderthalensis. In almost all cases, the Cova Negra specimen is assigned to the Neanderthals with the probability of 94%. In our opinion, these results sufficiently justify the assessment of CN 4600 to Homo neanderthalensis. And here we have the discriminant function, the conic discriminant function graph. Age of death. In CN 4600, the subarachnoid fossil obliterated and the presence of a petromastoid canal is observed. This situation occurs in modern human populations between 2 to 5 years of age. The dimensions of the petromastoid canal also vary with the age, and the value in CN 46700 corresponds to an age of death of older than 6 years according to recent human standards. The recent study of the skeletal of the Neanderthal individual aged 6 to 7 years at death indicates an overall growth rate at Neanderthal similar to the modern human child. Although the study of El Sidjon's skeleton does not include the petrous bone, it seems reasonable to extrapolate that the growth rate of the petrous bone could also be similar to that of modern humans on the basis of the results from other bones. In that case, at an age of death greater than 6 years to the individual represented by CN 4600 seems plausible. Here we have a X-ray image of the, or that could be ultrasound, I think, of the petromastoid canal of CN 600 in the axial view. Pathological evidence. An anomalous dilatation of the lateral semicircle canal, which is more marked in the non-epilatorial limb, is observed in the UCT images of CN 646-700. This dilation affects the entire arch of the canal as demonstrated by the reduced dimensions of the bony island and the increased cross-sectional area along the entire length of the LCS, whose values are outside the range of variations of Neanderthal sample and can be associated as a case of LSC dysplasia. The anterior semicircular canal of CN 46700 also shows a reduced bony inland compared to the other Neanderthal specimens, although in this case there is no such increase in the cross-section of the canal lumen. This indicates that the ASC of CN 46700 has a hypoplastic bony inland. Last, the posterior semicircle canal is the similar dimensions of those of the rest of the Neanderthal sample and can therefore be considered normal. Here we have the table 2 of the pathological diagnostic variables of inner ear and CN 46700 and Neanderthals. Oh, here we go. Oh my. For my science heads, my geek heads out there. All right, let's continue. In modern humans, the presence of LCS dysplasia is often accompanied by other inner ear malformations, the most common being the presence of an enlarged vestibular aqueduct. The dimensions of the vestibular aqueduct are much larger than those of the specimens from our Neanderthal sample and clearly indicates the existence of EVA in CN 46700. In addition, a small communication of fistula is visible between PSC and VA of CN 46700, although the most common labyrinth fistulas are also connecting the labyrinth in the middle ear. Fistulas connecting the semicircular canals in the VA have also been described. The most common cause of fistula in the semicircular canals is acute otitis media, complicated by the labyrinthitis. And here we have figure 5, the fistula between the posterior semicircle canal and the vestibular aqueduct in CN 46700. LSC dysplasia often occurs in association with other alterations in the cochlea and in the vestibula. In case of the cochlea, there is also reduction in the overall size of the cochlea, and the Mondini malformation, absence of modulus, may also occur. The cochlea of CN 4600 does not show Mondini malformation, but the cochlea volume is small, outside the range of the Neanderthal sample, at 1.7 z-scores from its mean. In turn, vestibular alterations associated with LSC dysplasia generally consist of an increase in its dimensions, although in some syndromes the opposite may occur and the vestibular becomes smaller. The dimensions of the vestibular of CN 46700 are below the range of the Neanderthal sample, clearly indicating that its vestibular is reduced. Last, SLC dysplasia may also be associated with the cochlear canal stenosis, and or alterations in the fascial nerve pathway. The dimensions of the cochlear duct of CN46700 are similar to those of other Neanderthal specimens in the sample, which rules out stenosis of the bony canal of the cochlear nerve, and the pathway of the facial nerve as it passes the cochlear is also normal. God damn, I wish I could figure out how to pronounce that word. Symptomology associated with pathologies. LSC dysplasia is the most common cognitional inner ear disorder. Although it can be asymptomatic, it most commonly is associated with sensorineural or mixed sensorineural and conductive hearing loss, in addition to vestibular symptoms such as loss of balance and severe vertigo. A dilated VA is also congenital and occur in isolation or in association with other disorders of the inner ear or adjacent structures. This malformation is also associated with a severe sensorineural hearing loss and with the presence of vestibular symptoms. Last, abnormal communication between PSC and VA also causes vestibular symptoms such as third Wyndham syndrome and or Tullio's phenomenon, with vertigo produced by loud sounds or pressure changes. In summary, the set of pathologies present in CN46700 produce a lifelong symptomology that would include severe hearing loss and frequent cries of acute disabling vertigo and imbalance. Oh my gosh. And dealing and experiencing that during Neanderthal times. Ooh. Okay. Okay, well, we're about to finish it. So let me just read the last part. Oh, Lord, I got so into it. Okay, so this is the last part. If you want to get into all the methods and all that fun jazz, I'll have the link in the description box and you guys can delve into that. But let's wrap it up here with the discussion. The occurrence in the same individual of such a wide range of malformations of those presented in CN46700 indicates the presence of a syndrome that is compatible with all of them. Syndromes that include LSC's diaplasia and or Eve include Charge syndrome and Pendrum syndrome, bronchoarterial syndrome, Wanderberg syndrome, Algelia syndrome, and Down syndrome. Aplasia of the semicircular canals is generally considered a major criterion of diagnosis of the Charge syndrome, so the presence of all three semicircular canals in CN4600 allows Charge syndrome to be confidently discarded. Wanderberg syndrome is also characterized by aplasia of one of the same semicircular canals, as well as by the presence of enlarged vestibular criteria that are not met in the case of CN46700, which allows us to rule out the syndrome as well. Algelia syndrome includes partial or total agenesis of the PSC, and because CN46700 has a normal PSC, we can also discard this syndrome. The presence of a normal modulus in CN46700 allows us to discard Pendrum syndrome. Last, the presence of branchioarterial syndrome can also be ruled out because both the dimensions of the cochlear nerve canal and facial nerve pathway are normal. The only syndrome that is compatible with the entire set of malformalities present in CN46700 is Down syndrome, where LSC dysplasia is common, both in isolation and accompanied by EVA. Other malformations present in CN46700 are also common in Down syndrome, such as homeoplastic ASC and small cochlea. Moreover, although homeoplasia is also the vestibule also has been described in Charge syndrome, the association between LSC dysplasia and the presence of a reduced vestibula has also been reported in individuals with Down syndrome. Consequently, all available evidence suggests that the CN46700 individual probably had Down syndrome, which is the most common human genetic order, and it is also present in great apes. Really? Down syndrome is associated with a wide variety of impairments, in addition to those produced by the inner ear malformations. These altercations affect growth in physical and cognitive development, which has a strong impact on all stages of child development up to adulthood, leading to delays in ambulation and speech acquisition relative to the population of their age range. Instrumental learning and development of communication and social skills are also affected. One of the impairments is that present is more than 80% of the infants with Down syndrome are generalized hypotonia, which is an important impact on breastfeeding due to poor sucking strength. That prevents the adequate oral seal during breastfeeding. In addition, children with, damn, that is, okay, that's fascinating. In addition, children with Down syndrome have delayed psychomotor development due to the combination of factors including, in addition to generalized hypotonia, ligament hyperalaxia, poor postural control, and poor balance. This results in substantial delay in gross motor development that manifests in delayed ambulation and lack of motor coordination and balance, which increases the risk of falls and hinders exploratory learning. Because children with Down syndrome have delayed tooth eruption and general skeletal growth, they may also have delayed age of subacute fossa closure. In that case, the individual represented by CN46700 would have had a minimum age of death of more than 6 years. In the case of known chimpanzee with Down syndrome that survived 23 months of age thanks to the care received by the mother, who was assisted by the eldest daughter. When the daughter stopped helping the mother to care for her own offspring, the mother was unable to provide the necessary care and the offspring died. On the other hand, other oldest cases of Down syndrome in other species have been documented by Rochlar et al., who identified 5 cases of Down syndrome in individuals from prehistoric populations. None of these individuals survived beyond 16 months of exterior life. These data show a short life expectancy of children with Down syndrome in nature and in prehistoric times. It is therefore no table that the individual represented in fossil C94600 lived to at least 6 years of age, which far exceeds the usual life expectancy of children with Down syndrome in prehistoric population. Okay. It is reasonable to think that the long survival individual CN46700 could only have occurred because it received continuous care and attention during that time. The life expectancy of children with Down syndrome can be increased if they receive the necessary care and attention. Thus, in 1929, the life expectancy of children with Down syndrome, which was only 9 years, increased to 12 years in the 1940s and now exceeds 60 years in developed countries. This marked increase in life expectancy of people with Down syndrome is undoubtedly due in large part to advances in medicine, but also to social changes that have led advanced societies to increase social protection for children with Down syndrome and other families. Given the chronic nature of their impairments, the individual represented in CN46700 would have required continuous and important care beyond the normal altricial care throughout their life. Because of the demanding lifestyles of Neanderthals, including high levels of mobility, it is difficult to think that the mother of the individual would have been able to provide such care alone, and also carry out normal daily activities over a prolonged period of time. It is likely, therefore, that the mother required the continuous help of other members of the social group, either for assistance in performing other daily tasks or to relieve her from performing them, or to directly assist in providing the necessary care for the child, or both. In other cases, in the known fossil record of individuals with inner ear pathologies resulting in hearing loss and impaired balance, the most relevant cases are Singra and Dar S. Soltate 2H5. However, unlike CN46700, both fossils correspond to the adult individuals who suffered from libothinnitis officans, a pathology that is not cognitional. In the case of CN46700, the individual is partly interesting because social care was destined to an immature individual who had no possibility to reciprocate the assistance received. There are also 2 known cases of immature individuals with pathologies that may have caused neurological disorders. One case of Quasfe 2, a specimen of Homo sapiens dated to around 900 to 100K, which suffered a severe cranial trauma that may have caused neurological disorders. The other case is that of a pre-Neanderthal pre-adolescent from the Cima de los Huayhuay who suffered from congenital craniosocius that deformed the skull and face. However, neurological extent of this pathological condition has yet been established with certainty in cranium. Therefore, in case of cranium 14 from Cima de los Huayhuay, it is not possible to reliably determine the extent of care these individuals needed to survive. Last, the evidence provided by CN46700 is fully compatible with the idea previously advocated by other authors that caregiving and collaborative parenting occurred together in Neanderthals, that both prosocial behaviors were part of a broader social adaptation of high selective value that must have been very similar to that of our species. Moreover, the presence of this complex social adaptation in both Neanderthals and our own species suggests a very ancient origin within genus Homo. Genus Homo. And that concludes the link between autism and Neanderthal DNA, Part 2. Now, this was some fascinating information, and I hope people out there, if this stuff scratches that itch, to please go out there and do some further research into these things and share this stuff out. This is some really incredible information that I think a lot of people out there who have children that suffer from various forms of autism or Down syndrome may be privy to enjoying this information, and it might bring some interesting insight for them. So I highly recommend everyone out there, check this out, share this out. It's really fascinating and important information for us as humans to understand the adaptations in our creation. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Lounge Ronin. All things, everything. If you're new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And until next time, stay positive, stay focused, stay true, and much love. Hello there, I'm Kios Ronin Beatmaker, and welcome to Ronin Art and Music, home to Ronin music, Lounge Ronin, all things, everything, the Monday Mindset, Rants, and Ronin Reviews. We strive to make holistic and authentic content that aims to improve your individuality, mental fortitude, and peace of mind. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Stay positive, stay focused, stay true, and much love. Now, back to the show.